Hi, beautiful brides. This is Adina in South Africa, and today I have a very special podcast with a very special guest, Yvonne van der Hoff from South Africa. And she's going to share with us a bit more about what she learned and her experiences about being his bride and her spiritual leader. So, Yvonne, how are you doing today?
Hi, everyone. Hi, Adina. I'm doing well as always, and thank you so much for having me. And I just must say that I'm enjoying your podcasts very much on Love at Last and the ones that you had on Homegrown as well. I am really enjoying it, and it's really such a blessing to me. And I would encourage everyone to please go back and look at all Adina's previous podcasts. Each one is such a blessing. The ones on forgiveness and her story on how she's dealing with uh, custody issues. It's just amazing. Thank you so much, Adina, for blessing us with that.
Thank you, Yvonne. Yeah, it's always leading. I can't do it without him. So I have to give him all the praise
Sure.
for everything. So I just want to ask you the first question. You are currently divorced.
Yes.
What can you share with us and all the brides about your
Mm.
experiences and what you have learned regarding your spiritual leader as
Mm.
his bride?
Okay, so first of all, let me just start out by saying that I come from a different background regarding religion and spiritualism and all of those things that you want to call it. I come from a very different background because coming here to this ministry, before I started coming to the ministry, I didn't really even believe that God really existed. And so I didn't know much principles, even going to church. So when I went to church, it wasn't really that I went to church because maybe I was afraid to go to hell more than, my want and my need to have a heavenly father at that time. And maybe because I felt something, but I didn't know what I was feeling. So my background is a bit different. And the first thing that I did when my whole life fell apart was go to church. That was the first thing because I didn't know where else to find help. And if it wasn't for me going to church, I probably wouldn't have come to the ministry, because it was sitting in church that I heard my friend's name said, and how I got the book and how I got here. So I don't have the church background, in fact, that most people do. So I didn't have any experience with Bible. I haven't read the Bible from beginning to end at that stage. I knew Psalm 23 because it was in a song. So the only Bible verses I knew was the ones I knew from singing. So for me, the experience was very different. So when I came to RMI and I read about, your spiritual leader at that stage, I think I wasn't divorced yet. But, I had this desire in me to have a spiritual leader, but my then husband didn't believe in God at that moment as well. So, there wasn't even that was going to happen. And then when the divorce went through, I had no spiritual leader, so I only had to cling to then what was my Lord and my Savior, and then he became my husband. So the whole issue of the spiritual leader, to be honest with you, Adina, has never been an issue for me. So I let go of my church very early on because I didn't really have much bonds with the church at the time. Although I was at the church for a few, and I started going to church, I didn't have a big bonds with anyone there. So it was easy for me to let go of my church, in a sense that I didn't have to worry about, being close to anyone in church or anything like that. So the process for me is a bit different than it was, I think, for a lot of ladies that's very close to their church. But I can tell you that even the fact that the church that I went through taught exactly the same principles that we have here in RMI, I still feel more comfortable not going to church because I know that I won't be hearing anything, that I would have any doubts. Because, of course, the enemy uses anything to put doubts in your mind. And so when you hear something, you need to go to him and say, what is it? Is this true? What does your word say? And do we really want to expose ourselves to that? And I just, to myself, when I was talking to my husband, I was just like, no, I think I've got what I need, because I've got fellowship with the ladies that I work with, which is like-minded. All of you have the same mind than I do. I'm sure if I go to a church and I speak about my husband, they'll think me crazy. And then, so I spoke to him about all of this, and that's what I came back with is I'm good with just him alone when the children's not here. We're alone for weekends and we enjoy each other's company, so I'm good with that. So I don't know if I answered your question. I hope I did, Adina.
Yes, I can relate to what you shared about your church, because I was in the same situation where I just started in a new church. I think the church is maybe for a lot of us the first place you run to, especially if it
Yes.
wasn't a big part of your life when crisis happens. So
Yes.
for me, I also didn't have those bonds with the church, and it was easy for me to let go of my church. And I felt uncomfortable being there, being single, and having everyone look at you, especially the single guys, looking at you as if you are, available. So that was the one big problem for me, sitting alone in church. And yeah, so that I can relate to what you also shared. And for me as well, with spiritual leader, I've learned through the lessons, I've learned what the role of a spiritual leader is, but I never had that experience with the earthly husband because I learned it after the divorce. So I never
Yes.
had to apply that principle with the earthly husband. But
Exactly, for me as well. I've never needed to apply the principle, so I'm good just the way that I am with me and my husband home, and just having that. I can see how it can sometimes get a bit difficult for someone that has their bonds in church, because they form bonds and they form relationships at church. But can I tell you, Adina, that I think because I didn't form those bonds, my husband, his grace was good for me there, in a sense that I didn't form those bonds, which means I didn't have anyone else to run to. I had my friend, but we only really became friends, during a time. It didn't take like 5 seconds. And I had no one else to run to except to run to him. And I can tell you that I think that strengthened my relationship with him much more than it would have had I been part of a fellowship at church. I don't know, I'm saying this, but not because of experience, but because of what I believe that he told me. So I don't know if that would have been anyone else's experience as well.
Yeah, I think for me as well, because normally in that period where I stopped attending or contemplated to stop attending church, I would run out of the church, avoiding everyone because I didn't want to talk to anyone. So nobody knew my situation. And I agree, that's because there's no one else. You don't have a pastor that you run to, or any fellowship or anything at church. He's the only one that you talk to. There's nobody else. And it does really build your relationship with your heavenly husband, to only have him through everything. And yeah, that so I think my experience there is very similar. And I mean, I'm currently also still divorced, so for me, my spiritual husband or spiritual leader is my heavenly husband, and
Yes.
I follow his lead. I don't know if you feel the same,
Yeah.
following his lead and just seeking him with everything.
Yeah, because the thing is, Adina, I actually, I gave this some thought very early on, because when I left the church, and I read the verse, and now I can't remember the verse exactly, but where it says that you can't serve two people, like that. And I've thought to myself that what would happen if I go to church and this pastor would say something that's contrary to even the Bible, to what I read in the Bible. Would I know it? Remember, I didn't know the Bible from beginning
No.
to end then. Well, I still don't, but I mean, I didn't know his principles as well yet. And I was actually fearful that I would be led astray, because I was so desperate to have my marriage restored at the time, that I was fearful of being led astray, because how would I know that this person that's human just like me, has
Yes.
the right answers for me? And that's one of the reasons that I believe that we don't like to give ladies answers. We give them our testimonies, of course, because that's our testimony, but not giving them answers, because we don't have it. Only he has the answers. And that's what I would tell every lady that comes here. Say, go to him and ask him, put up this scenario with him, have a conversation, not just asking and begging him for an answer, but have a conversation with him, because that's exactly what he wants us to do, is that fellowship with him. And then you'll get your answer by just having a conversation with him. So that would be what I would ask any lady that comes here that wonders, what should she do? Not think about the fellowship, not think about anything. Just go to your heavenly husband, go to him, ask him. So what do you think about this? Let us, let's discuss this. Let's talk about it, and tell me your heart, because he will, of course, because that's what we're made for. We're made for relationship with him. And so that would be my, my humble opinion to anyone that comes here, to tell them that.
Yes, I totally agree that with anything, whether it's spiritual leader or your church or anything else, is to seek him and let him guide you, and not to look for answers from anyone else except the Lord or your heavenly husband, depending on what stage of the relationship you are. But yeah, I think that's the only place we can get the true answers and his guidance and him leading us to do and follow him. Thank you, Yvonne, for sharing. Is there anything else you would like to share with the ladies in conclusion, or encouragement you would like to give them?
Yes, well, it would actually just be what I said earlier, that none of us has the answers. It's nice to listen to someone's testimony and to be encouraged, because there's a lot of things, Adina, in your testimonies that encouraged me. And I for sure remember when we were on the Wise Woman retreat, there was something, and I mean, I've read the Abundant Life series, but there was an answer that I was looking for from him, and I was talking to him about it, and I was discussing it, and it was regarding my children. And then someone asked the question, and the way that you answered it, just touched me, and I knew that was the answer from him and not from you. So that's what I would encourage all the ladies, is ask him, and he'll answer you. It may be through someone else. And the moment that you get your answer, you will know, because your heart will be so filled with peace, and you will be touched by the answer that you get. So I think that's what I'll leave the ladies with in conclusion.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. I agree. Sometimes you get an answer through a testimony, and that is why it's also important for us to share our testimonies, because you never know what he wants to share through your testimony with someone else that needs it. So I completely agree, and thank you for your time and for everything you shared, and I hope it will encourage and give other ladies a bit more understanding about the subject. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Adina. Have a nice day. It was nice to be here, and I hope to do one with you soon again. It's always nice to be here on your channel. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you, Yvonne.